So thank you. The room is full of literally millions of people. There's tens of thousands live streaming globally. My son is here. Thank you. I very much appreciate your support over the years. So as the usual, I have no idea what I'm going to say. That's part of what makes these fun. This is my life. It has been for 18 years. I sort of just ramble off whatever. And this picture seemed fitting, not only because Gage is here in the audience, but it's because it's a testament to we do hard things. So it's very easy to try and build something and be like, hey, neat, I pulled off a website. And it's very difficult to get people to organically organize over decades in such a way that when you are no longer there to work on a thing, it still lives on. And that is my moonshot, if you will, is to try and make something that is not just like, hey, this is this neat thing that Bryan made. So I feel like I've stumbled on something in the last year after about 18 years of doing this, as a result of coming to this event last year. So how does that relate to climbing a mountain? Well, we went up the hard way. There was the easy way. We could have driven up the highway, Gage, but instead we went up the back of the mountain, which is a ski trail, and climbed for like 2.5 hours because he said he wanted to do it. And that was enough for me. We needed to go do something hard. So I'll have some QR codes for a bit. If you want to install our software, you're more than welcome to. But my name is Bryan Ollendyke. I'm a professor at Penn State, and my primary job is as a staff member. So real quick agenda. What is HAX? Hopefully you're here to learn about the community pipeline that we've formed. So what is that? And I think the best way to show that is by showing what people have made. It's awesome for me to finally be able to talk about the cool things people are making with our stuff instead of me being like, yay, look how wonderful I am, because it's not super useful for me. So what is our pipeline and how have we been able to go from a open source project to a class setting, to a lab, to a club, and hopefully spawning a community from there? And lessons learned along the way. I think this is a repeatable pattern that can be applied to other open source projects and technologies, and hopefully is of interest to OSPOs in that regard. So if you want to play with our stuff without actually ever installing it, in the past year, we set up a web container-based environment. This is what you do when you're a major open source project, is you containerize everything so that people can play with it for 30 seconds to understand whether or not they want to spend the next 10 years of their life investing in it or not. But we have PHP versions, we have Node.js versions, we have things that run in containers, anything to try and hit people where they are with our platform. So what is our platform? It is a content management system that is somewhere between a static site generator and what you might traditionally expect in like what React would kick out as your headless front end for like a Drupal WordPress backend. We're trying to be as lightweight as possible while hitting on our pillars. So in the past year, Bill and I stabilized what our pillars are. So our fundamental pillars as a community are around accessibility, efficiency, extensibility, always being free and open, always being platform agnostic, emphasizing remixability and sustainability, whether that's project sustainability or environmental sustainability. So I'm not just beholden to lighthouse scores that say that you have hundreds and you deliver these assets quickly. I want to know if the next page hit, are you going to reuse assets? Is your cache going to get a miss? And then suddenly we're sending more data to you because data equals energy, energy equals environmental consciousness. So our platform is built using a technology called web components, which is a web standard. Our goal is to be a ubiquitous publishing platform. Some of the tech demos I usually give, I take an existing site, I point to it, and then I leech the entire site and I have it. It is around remix and total transformation of ownership. Yes, you could run this privately. Yes, you could put it behind, like people have to log into Microsoft or whatever. Like we support that stuff too. But if I want to get from point A to point B, I shouldn't have to think in any way. So we provide multi-tenant options at Penn State, and it's a completely open source and student-driven community. So real quickly, why web components? So web components is a web standard. I won't get into it in too much detail, but it powers literally everything we do, and I think it's the fundamental reason we can get so many students contributing. So it's a 4-part standard in the browser. So if you're used to hearing the word React or Angular or thinking in component architecture, those things are great, but think if you want to mix your React pudding with your Angular bits, that's not going to work. Web components is to make custom HTML tags that work across those ecosystems and that can be hot swappable with anything else. So as part of that, browser vendors got together, made these 4 specs and said, if we support these 4 things, then you should be able to have components that work anywhere in any platform. So how this works in practice is there's a JavaScript-based class item that everyone agreed upon called HTML element. You can extend from that and build a new tag. So effectively, you have to become a spec author at some level in order to make these tags. So there's some libraries that help on top of that. Another reason these are transformative is the styles live with the item in question. So I make a video player in this case. That video player will look and function the same in every platform, whether I put it on a WordPress site or Drupal site, a static web page. As long as I feed that JavaScript definition, it will load and look exactly the same no matter where it is. So then we have video player JS. Well, that can reference other files. So we can make components that reference other components, stitch together a whole ecosystem. Then we distribute these via NPM and other people can download them. To date, I believe we have 635 individual components that live out on NPM, can be used and ingested into other people's projects. Granted, you have to like the way it looks or the way it functions. Like, it's not like, oh, everybody's taken our button and now we are the button of the internet with a simple button, but we could be. So then how people use our platform is a user adds a video in HAX, either by clicking video or dragging and dropping the video brick. HAX presents fields. Those fields directly relate to HTML fields in this case, right? So you can see source. Right? We can make custom attributes for our tags. And so the user fills in the form, it fills in the HTML attribute, they hit save, and it's outputted as clean HTML that works forever. That would work the same in HAX as if I took this source and pasted it in Drupal, WordPress, Grav, anything. As long as you feed the definition of the video player, that will work forever. So these are some different themes because we're a content management system. Right, we've started to get heavy into portfolio development. But of these 4 themes, I only made this one. So our student developers are getting really good at this, or I'm getting really good at teaching. I don't know which, probably the second one. Probably I'm great at teaching, I guess is what this proves. But our themes are web components. And so I'll go to some of these examples. I can right click, inspect, and I can take clean portfolio theme and change that to say clean 2, and everything is stateful. It will now look like something completely different. So this is fundamentally different in the way that we're shipping these things from a ubiquitous perspective than if this were a single page app that's compiled in React or Angular. It's a bunch of gobbledygook, right? And why that's problematic to me, I need students to be able to look at this, pick it apart, play with it. I need people that have never experienced our stuff to look at it and understand what the hell is going on. And you start to lose a lot of that kind of tear it apart fixability factor when it's in a compiled form. You have to understand the whole tool chain to even start to conceive of what the heck is this. So what is HAX Lab? So I spoke here last year, saw a lot of great talks about OSU's open source lab, and it inspired me to say labs are sort of a made-up concept in academia. And I said to Dave, couldn't we just start calling what we're doing a lab? And he was like, yeah, we probably always should have been doing this. Because HAX is from an idea to today about 10 years old. And so me teaching, that's about 5 years old. So at some level, some of this stuff we're doing, we just sort of formalized. So when you name something, it's more valuable. It's always very important to know in academia. And so this didn't exist previously, but now it's HAX Lab. Oh, do you want to do an internship with HAX Lab? Yes, I want to do an internship with HAX Lab, right? So that has actually worked pretty well. So what is HAX Lab from student perspective? So it's a series of independent studies or internships. I work with our Information Science Technology College. That's where I teach, but I work in arts and architecture. So I get a unique lens into both of these worlds as far as me building HAX as a technology for our faculty. They're artists, primarily students that are artists. But then when I teach, I'm teaching a slightly more technical audience. But those students have internship requirements. Don't know if you've noticed, there's been like a lot of talk of like funding is difficult to come by. We haven't even gotten into like job market placement is really difficult for students, particularly entry-level students right now, because of this thing. I think it starts with the letter A and has the letter I next to it. Certainly does not help with junior development experience. So we've gotten a lot of requests for interns. Dave and I largely draw from people that have taken our classes. And so students learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in the context of a free and open source community, which is HAX. I teach a course that's a 200 level. So basically take that class, learn the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then it's like I have my own junior dev army. So my classes are roughly 50 to 60, which makes it really hard to teach a studio class, because I teach it like a studio class. So the room is everything in that, which I'll get to later. But most of my students are super green. So for example, I start out every semester with this little quiz, and the quiz is just like, why are you taking this class? You know, I get some answers that are like, I have to, and other people that are like, I saw some videos you did online at Apereo, and this looks like the coolest thing ever. So this was from spring, surveying 62 students. These are all concepts we cover in class, which is part of why I put these. Some of them are things they should have prior experience with. For example, they take Java classes, a lot of them, but you still see on a 1 to 5 scale, although some people say they're the bomb.com, which I don't even know where that joke comes from in my world, but some people think they just are awesome, which I guess is always true. So, they should have some Java experience, basically. Everything else in here should be largely blue and red, like, yeah, I've heard of it. Unfortunately, my students also largely don't have a lot of terminal fundamentals, which this survey was then good to see. Wow, you don't have this? Okay, I need to really work on this in the front load of my curriculum. And almost nobody knows what Git is. Now, this is unfortunate, but it helped my course go from being like 400 level and get pushed down into the curriculum a bit further, because I started to do these surveys and realize we had some later year students that did not have Git fundamentals. It was like, you kind of need that. So this has been very helpful in me planning out how I teach the course. You can see, then I get into some very specifics like, have you used VS Code? Have you used fetch? Do you even know what that is in JavaScript land? All right. We do get a little bit more interest group around security conceptually. We do have cybersecurity majors. And so I get a mix of cybersecurity majors, IST minors, people that have a little bit of web, people that have no programming experience. It's all over the place. So the structure of the course is open source basics. So Git, GitHub, some FOSS philosophy. One of the first activities we do is they have definitions in a markdown file, and I teach them the concept of Git and version control by going out, using ChatGPT if they want, and find a definition of whatever the thing is. So they define a concept. They're supposed to go find some links, just practice markdown. But what we're doing the whole time is trying to generate merge conflicts live. And so they don't know that. But in a room of 60 people, as they're all forking this file and editing it and adding their change, inevitably somebody is going to pick a definition that's someone else's definition. And so that generates this nice conversation around what is version control, what are those line endings mean something. This is why you need to commit more often when we're doing code, either together or by yourself. We get into component architecture via web components and Lit, which is a library Google developed originally. We talk about NPM. They use the HAX CLI for most of their work to learn the web using HAX. And then they start to work on some projects in class by the end of the semester, trying to attack legitimate issue queue issues. So now those might be very small in scope, but if you're thinking of like good first issue, stuff that you would mark in your queue, I'm trying to get people to attack just above that level a lot of times. Top solutions are either accepted directly or refactored into the project. So visualizing this somewhat as far as student journey, we've got a student, they enroll in IST 256. That's taught by me. They then do an internship or independent study with HAX Lab. They could be advised by me or by Dr. Fusco. They might collaborate with our newly formed HAX Club. Right, so someone might go into IST 256 and then join the club, or they might join the lab, or they might work across these two groups or be in both simultaneously. And all the while, we're trying to push them to work on projects that benefit other student clubs, client projects potentially if they want, industry partners, Penn State Web, whatever it is, someone that uses the web in some way, because web components work everywhere. So we can usually very easily find a way that, oh, this technology stack that you just learned, it is web. And so therefore we can apply this to this context. The goal being we get a better university learning environment, right? We get a hardened infrastructure from a security perspective, as I'll show one in a minute. And we get graduates that already have experience doing things that they can point to. They can point to commits. They can point to solving issues. They can point to projects that they hopefully then go and deploy on their own. So it makes them more marketable. So anecdotal plus data. I have data mined our community pipeline the last 10 years in order to generate a very complex picture to answer one question. The word's missing there. How the hell can we sustain development? And what do I mean, unfortunately? So just a very brief key. This is mostly so people can look at it later, right? If you see the little person icon, that has to do with developers, full-time, part-time interns, contributors, projects, whether that's a HAX.psu site, something that works just in the editor, a web component that works anywhere. The rockets are major launches, and then the little palette is HAX theme. Also under end users, take note of HAX students or students in general. And anytime you see that bright thing, that means a watershed moment. So in 10 years, from an idea on a piece of paper at a Drupal event, it was kind of funny, trying to envision, holy crap, we don't belong here anymore because we're constantly presenting. It actually became problematic that the members of our team were just always getting accepted to present on things that we no longer felt confident as experts in that field, particularly in front-end technologies. We started talking about a lot of front-end development stuff and interesting projects that we really did not feel comfortable, and yet people are coming to us asking how they could also engage in that. We said, we need to get in different rooms. Like, I don't want to be the smartest person. I want to go around and see, I need more perspectives. I don't feel confident in what this is. And our team started to branch out, and an idea appeared on a notepad around 2015 for something called HAX. In the 10 years from an idea on a piece of paper till today, we've produced 675 components, 53 that are drag and drop capable in HAX. We have given out 29 internships. We've had 44 contributors to the HAX ecosystem. There are 247 sites at Penn State alone. I have taught 567 students using this methodology, and the courses that are our primary reason why this project exists have gone out to 67,515 students in our college. There's also been 14 themes made in that time, hopefully a lot more soon. So here is the absurd looking picture that I leave up there. Part of this was so that when we're working towards grant writing, that we have sort of the ability to say, hey, look at all the momentum that we are sustaining. And I was able to then put this together and go, wow, there's trends in here that I didn't even realize. One of those key trends, and I'll just circle these in blue and red, simplify a bit. Anything circled in blue, that came from me or from our core development team. And I'll say our core development team was a few people. We, at one time on there, it says we had 3.5 people that were more or less dedicated to our projects towards Elms, which is what this logo out here is. You can see we joined Apereo in 2016, right? So we were doing some things towards community. We had open source work previously. It was in Drupal's ecosystem. So everything in blue, there's a lot of blue going on. I'm really pushing the project. And then if you look at the numbers, 3.5, this says we had 3.5 people, but we also just gained one, which means we lost someone. And then move forward a year, we lost another core developer. And so my takeaway from this picture is right around here, after I got a project manager, we went, oh my gosh, this isn't possible to do. It's just not possible. I can't go do all this. We need to think differently. And the think differently was basically turning the classroom ship into the vehicle for contribution. Everything in here in red is student-led or student-produced with minimal influence by me other than usually cleaning code up at the end. Particularly in the last year, we have a lot of major things that have been released in the last year. So replicating things that we see in the wild is one way that we've had people contribute. So this was moderately successful. We basically said, here's this interesting platform that Google has. I need you to try and do this as a final project. And so after it's a 15-week course, about 8 weeks of training, then about 4 weeks grinding on a smaller issue to kind of build up skills. Okay, 1 month, build this platform. Now, the platform is entirely front-end driven. If you've seen this before, it's taking a ton of inspiration from the way Google does some of their training sorts of exercises. They haven't really invested a lot in this platform. I really like the design of it. But so it was to get students to make that. Now, they learned a lot, particularly the student that pulled off this specific implementation, but we didn't get like a direct thing from that, right? Like we don't have that training thing. So moving to another project, as I realized, oh wow, well we did that, we can't really directly get their work in. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point of the course isn't to just have them do issues directly and me ingest it and our community grow. Maybe it's to set the foundation. And so then we had a project that was around university styling. So this is not the brand of the university. It's just heavily influenced by and uses all the spacing parameters and color choices of the institution. And we call it DDD for short. So in this project, this was in class, it was look at the Penn State website. There's this thing that says get news by email, componentize that. So you have to look at it, reverse engineer. I'd say, okay, but when I hover it, the color doesn't change, or hey, you have a contrast issue, right? It gives enough of a problem that then we can have a whole month-long project around the accessibility considerations of making that button work. How do we have flexibility in the API design? Because we're designing an HTML tag. In this case, this tag is called Simple CTA. And so they had to make simple CTA. It has to support light mode, dark mode. What does it look like on mobile? Is it centered? How do we load the font in a lazy loaded way that's highly performant? There's a ton of considerations around something as simple as a button, and it's become a great vehicle to get people in that mindset of a more sophisticated API. So while we didn't use this directly, this was, I believe, it says Polaris CTA was the example. This directly led to one of the students in class that did this, then building that out for the entire design system. So he took that and built a design system. He named it DDD for Develop, Design, Destroy. I sort of inspire this activist strain for some reason, that when we develop an interesting product, as soon as it's well designed, it will destroy all of the competition. He named that. I didn't do that. But so this took 1 semester to produce, and then he applied it to 60 plus elements in our stack. We now have 6 themes that are built using this design system. Started from a single button. He did this independently, came and worked as an intern. Then we have our own command line tool. So we ported the system to Node.js. So we have the system has a very minimal backend, but it's in PHP and Node.js. Did that around FOSSY 24. This spawned the need for a command line system. A past student wanted to work on a command line system. So he built this largely using Commander and Clack, which are 2 other projects. This was used in the classroom in beta. So because I teach the class, then I can use the tech and basically pilot, hey, is this going to work for new engineers or new potential contributors? No, because it doesn't for 60. Oh, wait, it did for 2 of them. How did they get it right? And basically rapid prototype our way towards successful onboarding in our community. So now it is the default. We started using it spring of 25. used it probably 3 weeks into the semester. They start using this. It scripts and gets out of the way a lot of things they're going to need to learn in industry, and then we can have a conversation around what is a package JSON file? What does the scripts area mean? Why do I have to install things? It's enabled us to have bigger, deeper conversations instead of getting hung up on syntax errors in a JSON file. Or using another ecosystem's project tooling. If I'm teaching this class and you're learning Angular, you might not go on the job and use Angular. You might have React on that job. So conceptually, you still have to know all of the underpinnings of how these systems work. So this has absolutely time collapsed how long it takes for people to contribute to our project. So Winston White took the class in 2023. He made 3 themes using the design system in 2024. So one student made the design system. He then implemented the design system and made themes. And then he came back and made the CLI in 2025. You can do pretty much anything from the CLI. As evidence that I feel like we're at a tipping point because of the CLI and the design system, these 3 themes were all made in the last year. We've actually had 5 themes made in the last year. They are almost exclusively student effort. I have almost no involvement other than teaching them some fundamentals of how MobX works for state management, because that's how we do our data storage. 3 of these themes are institution-centric, so they're Penn State-ish looking themes. Our tooling has reduced contribution time from 1 semester of learning and then 1 semester of building. So in particular, these 2 themes, which are portfolio-centric, they were made by students that took the class 1 semester, signed up for an internship the next semester, and then that was their semester project. So just some other ones that are in there. We had a fun RPG making thing. A lot of times where we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, I feel like, is here, right? Is when we're saying the classroom is for prototyping and building out and experimenting. It's not for actually the finished product. Anytime I've gone for the moonshot of like, you are going to make the finished product, maybe 1 student gets it. And I don't feel that it's an adequate learning environment to put those constraints on of like, hey, make something that's professional grade. Instead, we will focus more on like, make that button professional grade, because it's something everyone can conceptualize. And then some people will drill into that. When it was too big a scope, people were getting, they're still learning, but they're sort of getting dissuaded from like just, oh my gosh, how could I build a whole site sort of a thing. It's kind of overwhelming for some people. So the lab, we've had AI agent made. We've had 3 portfolio themes made in the last year. Also, we're redoing our dashboard. And now this is where I feel the biggest potential enhancement is, or a thing that could be transferable to other communities, is the club. So a student in this past semester said he was interested in turning what we're doing into a club. And the point of the club is to learn advanced web development by contributing to the community. And it's going to be very much scratch your own itch. Like, here's the issue queue. I'll pop in occasionally and help. But as part of this, we already have collaborated with CCSO, which is our cybersecurity club at Penn State. They did I think 3-week-long investigation. We set up mirrored infrastructure, got approval from central IT, and they actually discovered 14 CVEs in our platform. So then that stuff that goes out, it's through GitHub security mechanism, which if you have code on GitHub and you can get access to how they do their security stuff now, as far as the pipeline to CVE reporting, it's fantastic. We've had a great experience with it. So we've had 14 CVEs published. This is then things they can talk about. This is real world experience. It improves our infrastructure, right? It's gotten people that did that experience. Maybe they were sort of on a sidecar doing research going, this is a really neat thing that we've solved the problem in. How do I join the club? How do I take the class? It's kind of inverted the funnel. Previously, it was you take the class and then you sort of discover this whole ecosystem. So we're hoping this fall to have bi-weekly sprints. Still setting that up with the president. So this picture is daunting, and we lost our paid positions around here. A little bit post-pandemic, those people went to make big bucks, which is great for them. but then we haven't refilled things. And I've heard a lot of discussion at this event and every event since 2022 about a lack of funding. And so I feel like we've created a methodology where that's not a problem for us. We can still bring in contributors. Our funding hasn't changed, but our innovation has accelerated exponentially. So some lessons learned from this: don't let people just into the lab before they take your class. There's a lot of fundamentals that I'm able to get out of the way in that, right? So I feel like if there is an alignment with a classroom environment, right, especially if you're coming from an OSPO, you have faculty that are associated with that, how do we get principles of open source development and contribution directly into a classroom environment, right? That it's sort of the backdrop to what people are learning. Then they have the foundational skills, and then they can come and work on things that are more intentionally geared towards community development. The class works worse with too large of an issue scope, too many projects. So at times I was having like 3 projects and it'd be like rapid fire almost. It'd be like, hey, we're going to turn this around every 3 weeks. And for largely, I think I have like 19 to 21-year-olds that are new to open source development in general, let alone these languages. It just sort of became a wash for some of it, unfortunately. Also, the room is everything. So when it's a room kind of like this, and it's like, hey, I'm talking to you, you're in more of a mindset of, I'm going to be talked to, and I want to fill in the blanks. And that's not what this is. Like the best rooms I've had, there's whiteboards on every wall, there's tables and chairs that move. And then, even better is a projector that's on the whiteboard, because then I can put up a website and I can literally draw over top of it and say, this is the area I want you to all work on. Or you go and find a website and say, this is the area that I think should be this component. I think we're going to have to get that way in CSE and web education in general, just because AI has created so much interesting slop that you have to just be thinking in design. It has to be design thinking. It can't be syntax driven at all. Like there's just no point. And don't expect direct contribution. Expect to grow a possible contributor in this methodology. So the biggest gains that we've seen have come 6 to 18 months after they initially take the class. The top 5 to 10% of the class. So if I have a class of 40 to 60, I'm hoping to get 3 to 5 people that then contribute. And that's worked out pretty well. There hasn't been a semester that I haven't gotten at least a contributor. Usually it's 3 per class. Class works best with about 40% skill up, the foundations of what this even means. 20% of the class is then a simple project. It's a lot more paint by numbers. It's something like the, not even necessarily the button. We've had a lot of success with cards. If I say make a card, some people can go, oh, like a YouTube card, oh, like a Pokemon card, oh, like, and they sort of bring their own flair to what it is, and it's personalized and it's worked really well. They're not really well designed, but it creates enough of a conversation so that we can then get to something that's more exacting in design. Then about 20%, a lot less training wheels, 1 issue from the queue, but everybody's doing the same issue. And it's usually something very small, something like the simple CTA. And then 1 last issue that's bigger in scope, and you pick from 1 of 3 things. And we do that in part, I tell them AI is sort of there. AI is going to help you cheat at some level, right? I would have had to do all of this work in a vacuum. That's not reasonable at all. And in open source, we just want the best contribution. So you are encouraged to work in cohorts. Everyone still has to turn in their own work. It has to come from your repo. I have to see that the commits are yours. You're not just hitting fork on someone's and then saying it's mine. But you are encouraged every week to then work on the problem and then get together and discuss the problem. And then go, oh, Billy has the best solution here. Susie has this awesome way that she did this, and then merge all this together. So incentives, also, I've tried to rope incentives in from day one, right? This is work experience. I encourage them to post what they're doing on LinkedIn and tag me, and then I'll post back about it. Class credits. So whether they're taking the 256 class, which is 3-credit class, or an independent study, with me. That's 3 credits. They also have an internship requirement that's 240 hours. So we've been starting to get people that way. But the recognition goes a long way, particularly with these CVEs. To me, it was just like, oh, you're fixing something. And to them, it's like, I have my name on a CV, like that goes in a government database. Like, this is a big deal. Like, this is a big deal for me professionally. Like, oh, awesome. Like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll go through the work to do that for you. Discovered these issues and we fix them together. That's great. As evidence, Liam posted this on LinkedIn. He's got like 200 some likes and like all these people chiming with comments like, oh my gosh, how do I get involved in it? Like, it's a big deal. So applying to your context, work with faculty to align courses or course projects with FOSS community needs. Or if anyone in your community teaches, that's a big advantage, right? Think underlying skills needed to become a great contributor, right? So it's not just, oh, I've got these people and they can just go attack this. At some level, this is dogfooding. At some other level, this is like part of why I loved coming here last year was finding like, how do I have to express things so that it hits entry level? Like I need to onboard new developers. And now because of using the CLI in class, my mindset shifted to the students are my future developers. Like this isn't just a neat thing we're doing. This is intentional. We're trying to get them as contributors long-term. Everything must make sense for someone that has no idea what this is. And so those are an overlapping audience in that way. Marking issues for beginner, new, student, those sorts of things. I've started to shift to if AI can install my project or do my assignments, that is likely what a junior developer can do. So I'm writing good requirements in what those projects are. If I can throw it to like bolt.new, which will literally set up entire VS Code environments and do the installations, and then you'll see the deployment from like, hey, make me a site in HAX, which has incentivized me to do really good directions, but forced me to teach differently because I went, oh my God, AI can actually, it knows enough about my project to do everything I'm asking them to figure out. Break out the playground. So playground technology that lets people just start using it instantly is critical. Also, things like this that I wouldn't have learned unless I was teaching these subjects. A lot of people will put like a $ or something to imply, hey, terminal prompt. If a student doesn't know what a terminal is, they copy the whole line and paste it and it says command not found. And let's say they're not a student in your classroom saying that and you going like, oh, well, yeah, obviously, like you haven't used this before. So it says copy this. So of course. And so I went around to lots of directions and took out these symbols that imply bash prompt. Because if you don't know what that is, you can't contribute. And if you're not in my classroom, that was my biggest concern. If you're somebody's buddy and they said, hey, you should try this neat thing, and you literally copy and paste to try and learn and you can't because it says not found, you just go and you're on to the next thing. So some student projects real quick as far as methodology. Every semester in our issue queue, I make like a fake numerical value that is the time that I've taught the course. So this is like 8K, this is 9D, or where is it? 10X. Like I just pick something, and that's the identifier for the course. And then I tag issues with that, but I also tag them with HAX Lab. So then I can communicate to students the issues that they should dive into. But now over time, I'm also getting, okay, there were 3 projects that I gave out in the 8th time I was teaching. And these are closed, which means they actually got accepted into the project. So then the 9th semester, I go, oh, okay, well, there's 2 that are closed. These got accepted, but there's also these 3 that are still outstanding. This was in part because I was scoping too large. And so some interesting solutions came back. For example, make a party UI that just adds little characters. Okay, that's great. And then this person made a really great one. And you go to it and there it is. And it does like input validation. So, hey, it doesn't meet the requirements. And I got to add people and I can get rid of them. And I inspect and you can see that this is the RPG character. So they've learned I need to go and take this asset that already exists, the RPG character, which is the guy on my shirt, is something another student made doing an independent study with me. And so then we turned it into a web component. So it went from art and design into an actual component. And so then the component, we have to talk about, well, what is a seed value? How do we mathematically generate a seed? How can we generate a character and do the selection of different assets as SVGs with that person? Ultimately, this is really neat. I couldn't possibly just directly integrate this in the project, right? So like this spawned sort of the, oh shoot, now I need interns to do that. Like this will be their semester long project, is to integrate this. And so it's created a little bit of a backlog of things that we can dive into. But then you can see in the 10th semester, oh, I must have gotten these scoped better because we closed all of them. So I actually have a backlog that goes further away. 11th semester, there's still one open. This is because the student from class, she's actually doing these now as her internship. And so they're mostly done, but they haven't been finalized yet. So we've gotten better at kind of collecting ideas as we go and say like, oh, this sounds like this might be a great thing for someone new to chew on, and new to chew on equals in class. Oh, I teach again in 4 months. We'll tag this and throw it out there because I'm literally never going to get to all the work. We also had 14 security reports and CVEs fixed. Doing this via GitHub was just fantastic. This is a newer feature that they have. It was phenomenal, the workflow involved. And then the project enables me to just talk about the project, which tells me that I must be doing something more accurate. I could not have just called up a command in FOSSY 24 and be like, oh, you know what? It would be really great if I just, launch a dumb thing. Thank you. Takes a second to load, right? I couldn't just launch my blog on my computer and then start writing an article for FOSSY 25 that then toggles between light mode and dark mode nicely, update my cumulative stats. And then at the bottom of this article, because I was reading, right, and then we'll add a meme there at a later point in time. Hit save, and then do git push. And while this is not the way most of our people in our community interface with our technology, we can hit people at both ends of the spectrum, right? Like you can be a super advanced technical person and go and put that stuff in there. You can go and realize that you can hack the system. And so now my site looks more like an online course, right? Or you can be one of our faculty that's teaching at Penn State using our software as a service thing that integrates with Azure. And you just get the dashboard. This dashboard was entirely built by students. The sound effects are by students. The little AI silly people, or not AI, the little graphical people are by students. I can go to HAX Cloud. It will launch a web container, which was made by students. And we could call up and just generate a silly little person, which this was a project in class, which then it has them interfacing, learning how to deploy this technology, but also extend it while also marketing it. So then we get into how do we talk about these things as a community? That could be something that comes from the club. So we've really integrated this process entirely with student community. We're starting to talk to different clubs on campus. Like I will go and write the fundamentals of how to internationalize the entire system. I did that. It's very hard on the front end, but it's even harder in my mind to translate to Italian or Spanish or Japanese or Farsi or, oh wait, there's clubs on campus and there's people that overlap, HAX Club and the Japanese club. Hey, do you want to learn how to do contributions to improve internationalization through this club? And so just started this process. I don't know, I never thought of this before. There's all these students that need experience. They want to do something, scratch their own itch, which especially with clubs is, I'm interested in this one thing. I want to learn more about it personally, whatever the thing is. And so we're starting to branch out and get more people interested through the entire student community. We actually have, the president is going to the student involvement fair this coming fall. So it'll be the first semester where we're hitting people early on with, hey, this is what this is. Here's the things people have made. Here's what you could make as well. So this is also used for online courses at Penn State. We've got like 55 or so courses. This is just one of ours about punk rock as a more recent one. And it used to be that all I showed were these sorts of designs. It was just, hey, this is great for OER publishing. And it is, but fundamentally it is just playing components, and there's the text editor, and it can make any website. So with that, I feel the revolution will be student driven. Funding isn't coming to save us, and it never was, unfortunately. So instead of saying, wow, it'd be great if we had more funding, we just envisioned a new way forward without it. So we've had, I think it said 23 contributors in the last year. That's more than Elms had in like 6 years. Now, those contributions might be fix a doc here and there, but a lot of them are build an inline audio widget that when someone clicks it, it's playing audio and then they're engaging in course material. It's fixing real issues that we have to build interesting platforms and work so that students have OER platforms for engaging with courses. We have bi-weekly code sprints coming via the HAX Club. We're starting to partner with other clubs. We've also just started conversations to do a workshop with Hack PSU, which is a major league hacking sponsored event. It's like a 48-hour hackathon that HAX is going to have a presence at. And then all of this is with me still teaching and doing HAX Lab. Like, this is part of the fun of this is seeing the student community side grow is meeting my 2015 thesis, which I put on a piece of paper. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could build stuff this way? But then in 2015, I also finished my research, which was around how I got Penn State to adopt Drupal. Oh, also, I secretly wrote a thesis for what if we intentionally built a new community? What would that look like? What if it wasn't this just interesting, organic way that open source spread and, oh, we've got WordPress and it's cool, but it came from this company and now people are a little shaky on the company at this time. Or, oh, this Drupal thing that spawned out of a dorm room. No one ever thinking, what if we built this interesting, cool ecosystem that everyone can jump in with? What if we started there? Like, what are the fundamentals? What are the foundational pillars of this technology? I should be able to take a website. I should download it as a zip file. I should be able to give it to you. You should be able to open it. I shouldn't require databases. I shouldn't require complex servers. I shouldn't have to know that it's in Apache. I shouldn't have to know that this is an Express-based server. All of those considerations of the web mean nothing to someone that doesn't understand what the web is. And yet all of them limit whether or not our faculty and staff deploy things. Or, oh, we went with this vendor versus this one. So if you're interested in getting involved or learning more, there's a bunch of links. It's helped make the web more ubiquitous. That means accessible, it means fast, it means something everybody can participate in. And always looking for ways to partner with other organizations. We recently brought on Jenny Frank, who's our lead PI, who's involved in going after grants, but also we have some that have already landed. So we'll start paying students to do some of this work, which to me has always been the, oh my gosh, maybe we're actually going somewhere. Is finding those funding streams that we said were not there. So with that, is anybody, any questions? Yes.
So, this is brilliant, and this is the creation of movement. I'm sitting here really excited, but that wasn't the question. The question is,
thank you.
I'm kind of curious whether you, so as you think about the student contributors, do you think, you probably don't have data on this yet, maybe you do, but I'm curious whether they will be long-term contributors. So, like, are you building? Do you expect them to be Earl Nietzels, or do you expect them to? Do you expect churn so that you're going to need to sort of replace your contributors over time through the class?
So the question, I'll repeat it for the recording. Question is, do we expect these student contributors to come back and be contributors long term? Yeah. Or is this just a flash in the pan, hey, you did this one neat thing?
Oh, no, I mean, I don't think it's a flash in the pan necessarily, but is churn a part of the plan?
So churn is part of the plan at some level. Now, This also is a great, a great example. My course prior to 2022 was a 400 level course. I'm hitting students that are junior, senior, super senior, like fourth, fifth year. They're contributing, going, oh, that's neat. And then they go to industry. And I'm getting no additional impact in the same way. Some of those people like that worked on the dashboard, which is a 4-person entire semester project. I mean, some of them were working on this 20 hours a week because they were like, this is so friggin' cool. I still talk to those cats when they come back to campus. Like, some of them have had prior commits. Some of the people from 21, 22 use HAX for their blog still. And so it's like minor sorts of things. Where I'm seeing a lot more repeat people coming back in is now that the course has shifted to a 200 level, I'm getting them more sophomore year, second year, third year, right? Somewhere in there. And so there's an opportunity to do the internship and an opportunity to go, could I do another independent study? And I'm getting Winston, for example. Winston had a class with me, I believe switched his major because of how much he loved the class. Then came back and was a TA and was like doing the assignments in class to just keep pace with being a TA, and then did an independent study, and then did another independent study. Like, just kept coming back to it. I'm blanking on his name right now. The gentleman that did our AI engine, which we don't even talk about because it requires resources on the back end, but we have a little agent that you can chat with an RPG character and ask questions of the course material, and it'll go out to a private LLM just listening for the content changes in that course and try and tell you information about it or ask you questions about it. Definitely want refunding on that to actually make it real. Zach. Zach came back after the fact, but didn't come back. He just hung out in the issue queue. He was like, oh, I'm bored on a Saturday, and just started fixing stuff. So that's newer, but like, he added a whole auditing engine to the CLI one day just for funsies. So like, then in class, students could build out their buttons, because the button was the project we were working on, and then they could run HAX audit. And the audit would compare the design system to what their work was and output where they were not meeting the design system. I had never envisioned any of that. Zach built all of it, and I just one day was like, holy shit, this like completely changes the way I'm going to teach this now, because I wouldn't say that exists. And we do it. And then I'd say, oh, by the way, there's this auditing tool to help you get to the finish line. And they go, oh, wow. And then it would generate more questions, because it would be like, oh, this is a, zero padding. And so it's out of alignment with, is this fine? Like, oh, well, yeah, that's fine. Because like, it's actually, you're doing something outside the design system. The design system isn't flexible enough. So we're starting to I feel like we're at the tip of that. Winston is going to grad school. Winston has already talked about coming back and being involved in the club. I had another student just finish an internship that was like, hey, is there any way I could keep doing this? Because like, I'm learning a lot doing this. And I'm like, unfortunately, my time is not infinite, but if you join the club and there's this cohort of other people that are realizing that they can teach each other these things, then I can jump in for office hours, sort of a thing, to help scale. So I feel we're just at like the precipice of that, because for a while it was just churn. And that was where I started to have the lessons learned, unfortunately, at times, where it's like I invest a ton in the assignment and a ton in the output and get very little actual like project gain, which my teaching and the project are totally separate things. Like, if students are learning a whole bunch, that's great. That's the baseline. That's always happening. It's whether they're learning and contributing. And at first it was a ton of learning, but not actual active contributing. And so I feel like I'm just at the tipping point where they're starting to roll back in, and I've had this going on long enough. And I have students from like the 2021 timeframe that sort of check back in with their professor on LinkedIn, who's still talks about this constantly. He's like, holy crap, this is still a thing. And then they still have the skills, and so they go and fire it up. And so like, our numbers are starting to go up across the ecosystem. I really don't do a lot of promotion. I mean, I just post a few things on LinkedIn, but then the students are way more active on LinkedIn. And so a lot of it is coming from that organic reach of people talking to other people, and they go, holy crap, you got CVEs for this? And we're already talking with the cybersecurity club about running that experiment again, to say, hey, now a new cohort comes in they audit the fixes of the last group, but they're not given the details of what was fixed to see if they can, generate the same errors, or maybe they generate other errors.
Are you now inserting vulnerabilities on purpose? Or that was my question. Were there? Do you have other examples on campus, or else like the teaching open source group? That's a broader sort of thing. But at Penn State, are there other classes that are project-based experiential learning like this that you know of, or?
IST as a major is very project-based. The cyber program seems to be a bit more experiential by nature because it sort of has to be with those problems. But so when we started this engagement, I was concerned that I was going to get in trouble from a security operations perspective, that I'm like giving students access to something. So I wanted to make sure that they were on board. I mean, we do run like Nessus scans, and there's other agents that are monitoring systems. I don't need the students DDoSing something and then them getting in trouble, right? So, but the director of IT was like, "This is awesome. Like, this is a really great idea. Thank you for asking, but this is a great idea." So I'm hoping that it can start to. There's a news article that's going to come out probably in a month about this. So I'm hoping that starts to spread word of like, I would love to integrate HAX into other parts of the curriculum. And it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're doing my work. And like, that was the joke, is like, the students are doing my job. No, they're still learning things they would have anyway. This just provides a backdrop. And oh, by the way, this is a real backdrop. This isn't like, let's envision what a better Canvas interface looks like. Like, I did those sorts of things when it was Angel, when I was an undergrad. This is like, oh, this is an ecosystem we can actually tap into. There is a small open source contingent of a like sort of OSPO-y sort of a thing at Penn State. I need to get more involved with them. But some of it has also been like, I feel like we finally have enough of a story that I can tell with the pictures and output to have you ask those sorts of questions in the first place. I didn't have that before.
I just had a quick, first off, I have seen other classes, maybe FOSSY in those groups, where they have a project that is where the class is based around it. Similar or not, I don't think to the extent that the way that you have it set up. I think that club aspect is the real kicker, because that is just bringing and keep getting consistency and having it last longer than this semester. And I think that's really, really cool. I wonder, I guess my question was for money part. If we are looking at how to support like broadening it or doing anything, have you talked to companies about the fact that this is a workforce development tool that they desperately could use, having junior developers who aren't just junior developers, but actually like maybe more experienced developers coming out of Penn State or other universities?
No, do you have any connections where I could do that? Because we have been told before that some of the students that have come out are like, yeah, we're just skipping you over junior because you clearly got that out of the way.
Well, I think it's worth talking to. I mean, there's yeah.
I have an idea to share with you afterward, or now,
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I mean, I know that's when I talk to industry, like, well, how can universities and industry collaborate? And it's always like, right now in particular, it's like, oh, yeah, workforce development. And so it just seems to be like a very good way of like getting, and then helping support this type of activity.
That's a great idea.
Unicon. So 2 years ago, I went to this conference with Patrick, and then All Things Open, and All Things Open had much more industry. I don't know if it's still your experience.
Yeah.
Go there.
Yeah.
I mean, I submitted there, but didn't get accepted. So.
I know I should say that in this conference, but you submitted to North America?
No.
Oh.
Tell me where to submit.
Don't tell her and accept.
There's a limited hours in the day.
She's probably listening.
But
So this is a total imperial since we're dominating the room. I mean, I'm just saying for project support. I mean, what if Jen and Michelle submitted to everything on behalf of our project? Like, we're just like Josh has started to reach out about grant opportunities. I wonder if Jen Cummings and Michelle Hall, if we said, put out a call of, these are all the, EDUCAUSE and here, and all things open, Linux,
Yeah.
Open Source Summit, Name Soul. But, and then for European, like, FOSDEM and OW2, I mean, that way it's taking, if you think about how we could reduce the barriers for you and projects to get, maybe if it came from Apereo, sort of just,
Could Apereo submit on behalf of students?
I'll be honest, anyone that uses that.
Because a lot of students can use activity fees to go to professional events, and it being their voice. Like I've said this for a while, but like I don't need to be the person talking about this. It doesn't help me.
So
But
there is an education track that you're running at All You Build It, right?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I forget it. Never mind.
Sending myself an email.
I also have questions.
yes, please, no, please. We're just riffing.
Okay, so one question is like, to what extent is this a product that you are now like marketing as a competitor to existing web platforms? Like, is this like, should I be like telling my friends like, hey, you should use HAX to build your website? Like, is it at that stage?
It's probably, what is the site for? That would dictate a lot of it. So like
Let's say like something really basic, just like,
Portfolio site, maybe?
yeah, just like no search, no databases, like just some static code.
no search, no databases. That sounds great. I mean, like for us, it's replaced a lot of like static site generator needs. At the same time, it's replaced all of our Drupal usage. But bear in mind, I noticed early on, like I basically adopted Drupal because of its flexibility. It got way more usable, but the modules I was building were largely around enhancing usability. So we sort of hit this apex where it was like the Drupal community got very heavily invested in content construction and data modeling, as it should, but we were still just making HTML blob pages kind of a thing. So I think it's absolutely at a point where, whether it's the PHP version, which I believe you can still deploy on Reclaim Hosting with a button, go to Journey theme. But our DX and workflows of like going from nothing to being published is pretty clean. When you get into custom theme development, we do have documentation for doing that, so that you can make completely custom themes. The scale and scope of these sites, and so here's a totally different looking one, right? Like, and then I can use the editor or whatever to make my changes, or I can add my blocks and throw in my video player from before, right? And it has the fields there. There we go. It's saved. Obviously, you have to have your RPG, silly people, but and then we have Outline Designer, right? So I can administer sites quickly. We definitely have some UX patterns that need love. We need people to use it and point out issues. I mean, we use it for hundreds of sites. It's been used since 2020. I use it for all of the marketing sites around the community, right? And now we're starting to get into the portfolio focus. What? Are you serious? It's not up there?
That happened to me too.
I just figured out.
Well, when we were, yeah. I had a sleep issue up there.
Maybe it's at the TV. I would say yes. I wouldn't have said that last year. So, I mean, in part because